want to finish off with a quick story of the hometown of Nelson Mandela, one of my personal heroes. I went down to Soweto, which is an inner city suburb of Johannesburg. At that time, Johannesburg was the highest crime rate in the entire world, the city. I went down and went through the business part of Johannesburg, down a few streets, up over a bridge, and as I looked down the bridge, the township of Soweto spread itself up in front of me, and I snapped this picture. And it reminded me very much of my childhood in the early 70s in Jamaica, in inner city Kingston areas, when I would look at this collection of shacks and corrugated tin roofs and dirt roads and think about some of the places that I grew up in Jamaica. I was a little bit disappointed. I somehow thought there'd been a transformation happen in Soweto as a result of the great work of people like Tutu and Mandela, but that's what I saw. As I walked down in the community, I was greeted with another image, and I snapped this picture. It was a group of young people, young residents of Soweto. And there was a thing that I noticed, first of all, the absence of Nike swooshes and Adidas stripes and bling and the latest equipment and gear. They were playing soccer with a little rag ball. The thing I noticed second, and almost immediately, was the bright smiles on their face. And it wasn't because they were all just a happy bunch of kids. The smiles to me represented something that, at that point, I needed to understand. I was very depressed having come out of a war zone in Kosovo. I was very depressed because I could see how badly humanity can treat each other. I could see the outcome of bias and racism in the mass graves and the slaughters that happened in Srebrenica and other places in which I was working. And at the same time, we were getting the horror stories coming out of Rwanda, and I thought, are we slipping back into the age of barbarism? And is this the best that we can be around the world? And I looked at these young kids, and I thought, these are the same young kids I saw in the 31 Division, the last position that I had in Toronto Police before I left in 2002. These are the same young kids I used to see in Fleming Park when I worked there as a beat officer constantly. These are our kids, and they're the same kids all around the world. It's not a happy smile you see on their face. It's a smile that says, I know who I am. I know where I come from, and I know what I want for my future. Mandela and Tutu, who lived in Soweto, credited those young kids, the young lions of South Africa, for overthrowing one of the most racist regimes ever, the apartheid regime. Mandela was in jail for 23 years. While he was in there, he carried the fight, but the fight on the front line was carried by young people. Without power, without influence, without money, without weapons, they carried that fight. They brought down the system. Mandela walked out to a fallen system. Those young people are incredibly powerful. Our young people are incredibly powerful. We can't forget the youth in this dialogue, and that's why I want to recognize the youth in this room. We can't forget that many of those youth are now our young police officers. We hired 1,600 police officers in the last 5 years. 50% of those classes were diverse members. Women, as minorities, gays and lesbians, the whole spectrum of what represents Toronto is now in the Toronto Police Service, 1,600 strong. And they're the young people that are changing this organization from the bottom up. It's an incredibly powerful statement. I'm inspired by people like Mandela as much as I'm inspired by those young people. This is a copy, a portion of the speech that Mandela gave in his inaugural address. It's a restating of a poem by another person. It hangs in my office. It's something I look at on a regular basis to remind me of what our responsibility is. And no matter how dark things appear to be, no matter how many tragedies we have in our professional lives or how many tragedies we have in our personal lives around issues of racism and racial intolerance and other bias, that there is still cause to go on and that we are the ones that have that solution. We all know about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream. We know and have been inspired by Obama's hope and change message. But one thing that I come back to is King's statement, the fierce urgency of now. We're not talking about some distant future. This conference today and your participation and your solutions that you offer to us are not going to be implemented in some distant future. It's now. We feel that fierce urgency of now. We know that you have that sense of fierce urgency. You want to see things change and get better now. We're with you on that. Absolutely 100%. And none of us in this room, because we're all here on a Saturday morning, none of us in this room are going to give up on it. You have our commitment, and we know by your presence here today that you have given us your commitment. Toronto Police Service is a vastly better organization than it was 22 years ago when I joined. The service has literally transformed itself internally in the past few years. I want to give great credit to Chair Mukherjee and Chief Blair for their leadership on this. And I want to give even more credit to you who have pushed us and challenged us to get better. We have significantly changed our service delivery in that time frame, but there's much, much more to do. And I know that we can continue to be better because we have transformational leaders like you at all levels in this organization, at all levels in our community, in our city. We have people like you in the many agencies represented here who are sometimes complaining, always constructive, and who are willing time and time again to join us, to work with us, to help us to be better. And we are better. Not where we want to be, not where we need to be, but we're getting better together. Thank you and God bless.